What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy, Devin Gonzalez, and today we got a guest, AJ Cappuccitti. I said that right?
Yeah, you nailed it, bud. Nailed
Ah,
it.
awesome. So, we actually met through the Real Business Owners Mastermind, and I thought it would be awesome to have him on here and go over his journey from high school dropout to construction worker turned serial entrepreneur now, and his journey can relate to a lot of people. So let's get into it. AJ, what allowed you to start in the construction field? What drove you towards that?
What got me into construction, truthfully, was money. It was like as a student, I got the opportunity of jumping in with my grandfather. He was in like civil construction, so we did a lot of like hydro lines, gas lines, trenching. It wasn't pretty. I'm gonna be honest, it was not pretty. And I got a taste for the money, man. Like I was getting paid good money over the summer of I think I started between grade 8 and 9. I worked there all summer, but I had like a job. There was no work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It was like Monday to Friday, wake up at 5 a.m., get home at 6 p.m., see your buddies bike riding outside, playing street hockey. It's like I was in the work van. I was like, but I was making money, right? And I was, pretty good with my money and stuff and kept saving and stuff like that. So that's what first got me into construction. Then from there, it was just kind of, working with my hands, building it. I always knew I wasn't, a school guy. I was, ADHD. I was like, gifted in school. I did well with grades and stuff. I just hated a classroom. I hated kind of restrictions. I hated, bell rings, go here, bell rings, go there. So I think I was 17 and I just kind of said, I'm out. Like, gonna go back to work, gonna go work construction. And that's how I made the decision. And here I am now.
And how was that decision like with your parents and stuff, like when you said that I'm done with school?
So I was living with my grandparents at the time. Born and raised, my father wasn't around. My mom committed suicide when I was 11.
Wow.
And at that point is when I got kind of like a chip off my block because you get the pat on the head, everything's going to be okay. Do you need anything? I know everyone cared. I do know everyone cared now looking back as an adult, but what do you say to an 11-year-old that just had his mom commit suicide, right? So, but at the time it was like, I don't need anyone, or I'm fine, or I'm good, or, stop pitying me kind of thing. And that's where a chip started. From there, I started getting into trouble, bad crowds, bad decisions. Work was more important, kind of proving something to everyone that, I can move out on my own, I can make money, I can buy my own car. I just felt like I had to do it alone at that point because you lose your mom, your dad's never around. And, my grandparents took me in open arms. I love them to death to this day. I look at them as parents, but it was just one of those like, the closest people to you aren't there. So you got to kind of like prove it to yourself internally. Now looking back, like I've never gone to therapy for it. I've thought about it. I just I don't know how to explain it. It's just you feel like you're alone and you have to do it alone. I didn't have to, but at the time I thought I did. So that's how I ended up, dropping out of school and moving out young and living on my own. And one thing led to another, and here I am now.
So do you think that, losing your mom at such a young age, I mean, I lost my mom a couple of years ago, but like at such a young age, do you think that it led you to like rebel a little bit, or it acted towards you, dropping out of school?
Oh, 100%. It was like the main factor. It was just, I never dealt with it. I never absorbed it. And to this day, I have problems like sweeping stuff under the rug and moving on and going to the next stage. And, okay, what's next? Here's a problem. Okay, just muscle through it. So it was probably the main factor of me getting in trouble, main factor of me leaving school, main factor of me continuing on with construction, even entrepreneurship. You still have that drive into. I knew I always had the drive, but it's like I feel like it was stacked against me. And like we grew up, I always call making middle class. Now we weren't middle class, we weren't lower class, but we did lose a house due to like mortgage payments. We weren't rich beyond belief. We weren't go out for dinner every night kind of family. Like I grew up with shoes on my feet, right? I grew up with a new knapsack to go to school, but we weren't rich. And it was like, making that middle class kind of feel and knowing there were money struggles, it's like I want to make it. I want to do better. I want to, you know, be more. Even as a parent losing my mom, I look back and say I couldn't even imagine my kids at 11 losing a parent. right? I'm
Okay.
like, I don't even know how I got through that, but I did, luckily. But I think it makes me even a better father, not only leaving school and getting in trouble, it's kind of done the polar effect now where it's made me a better person rather than a worse person. You got to hit rock bottom before you go up. So,
And were you an only child?
yeah, I was an only child.
Okay. So with your grandparents taking you in, I mean that's amazing that they, took you in open arms and stuff and kind of showed you the ropes. So before your grandparents took you in, was your grandfather already kind of that dad role for you?
Oh, we lived with my grandparents from day one. My mom had me when she was like 18. So we pretty much lived with them. Like I grew up with them always around. So it
Okay.
was like me, my mom, my grandparents, and after my mom passed, I just kind of stayed with my grandparents.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like,
Yeah.
I mean, besides, losing your mom, it wasn't a huge transition like moving houses and all that kind of
Oh
stuff.
no, 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 no. It was like I found out one day walking out to school. I saw a police officer walking up, and my mom did struggle with like mental illness and stuff like that. So I knew like I don't know how to explain. You just know, but you just know. Like when I saw the cop walking up to the house that day, it was like, excuse me. I walked past him, but it's like deep down inside, your stomach drops, and it's like, you know.
Yeah, something's wrong.
I just kind of like got called back from the bus stop, walked back in the house. I got told the news, and that was it.
So I mean,
So the
with that,
transition wasn't nothing changed for me. My living arrangements.
so with how you said like rebelling and everything like that, and with you having you're a father of two, right?
Yeah.
So with you being a father of two and almost having the polar opposite effect with your children, do you think that's led you like subconsciously to like personal development? Because I mean that's one of those things with entrepreneurship. It kind of has that personal development side to it, and taking a career path in entrepreneurship is not the easiest thing. So if your mom was having those battles and within, it kind of led you, at least what I'm thinking is like almost the opposite way of like trying to show yourself that you're strong. Does that
Oh,
make
oh,
sense?
100% it does. Yeah. And like I feel going through that, experiencing that, living with someone like with that kind of condition, I get days where like I've second guessed myself, or is it hereditary? Like I get down on myself, but I feel like being led into personal development, it's I'm in personal development because I know what she went through. I know, and I don't join these masterminds or coaching or anything like that to walk me out of a rut, but it's kind of like you got to enjoy who you're around. Like you're the average of the five people you hang out with, kind of thing, right? And I see
Definitely.
more for myself. I see myself doing better. I see, building something for my kids because like I wasn't left anything. So I had
Yeah.
to, kind of make it whatever I have today is what me and my wife have kind of built together. So yeah, I think that has really led me into personal development. And I think a lot of it has to do with paying back the people around me. Like I know when I was an entrepreneur, I wasn't home a lot. I was working 5 a.m. till 6 p.m. I wasn't, showing up to every game as, a father. My wife, like getting into entrepreneurship, man, like I owe her the world. Like literally, I gave her no reason to trust me coming home one day and say, I'm quitting my job. I'm too smart for this shit. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss.
No, you're good. Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Um, and I'm starting my own business. And she said, yeah, you got the work ethic. You'll make it work. Like before that, I don't know, like any reason she gave me, like, I'm going to go have a drink with a buddy. I'd come home at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Like, we're just going to go out and, watch the game, watch a whole game plus the second game. Like, I don't know if I was like kind of rebelling, saying I'm working so much, like I'm missing time with my family, overcompensating it. But like, I feel like personal development now is paying back those around me. And I feel like I have an obligation to do that with everyone. Like I want to do that with family. I want to do that with friends. I want to do that like even joining like RBO now, Inner Circle, and I'm with WinRate and their small business academy and doing some coaching. And I'm like, what can I give back to them? Because they're giving me something now by allowing me to have somewhere to be.
Right. I
It's
mean,
just like-minded people, right?
no, definitely, and it's crazy. We relate definitely on the wife thing because there was a day where I basically had told my, it was at the time she was my girlfriend, but I was like, you know what, like I can't work for anyone else. I'm done with this. Like I'm over this shit. Like I'm just gonna figure it out. And she's like, what do you mean? Like where are you gonna get your personal training clients from? I was like, I will stand in front of like a Vons or a grocery store and sell personal training for myself before I go do this again for someone else. And then we are about to have our first child, and she was like, if you're going to open the gym and you're going to do this, it's now is the time, like make your move. And I was like, shit, you're right. Okay. Like, so now in the same boat as you. Is It's one of those things where like we're here, we're doing it to grow and provide and leave something for our family and do it for them. And it isn't always the easiest when you're working long days or you're gone or all those things, but you know that it's for a reason, and that's what kind of gives us that driving force, right?
100%, man. No, I totally get that. And same thing like you when you had the ultimatum, and then I quit my job. I didn't even tell my wife. Like I went into my office, I told my boss, and I was on good terms with them, and I said, "Listen, I'm out. I quit. I'm not coming back." And he's like, "All right, I'll put you on EI. I know you're stressed out." This I go, "No, like I quit. I don't want no like employment insurance, nothing. Like I quit. That's it.
Yeah.
Come home, register my business, do all that work, and talk to my wife about it." And she's like, "Yeah, so this whole COVID thing, like, you might be sitting at home." I'm like, "What COVID thing?" She goes, "The world shut down." I go, "They can't shut down the world. Like, who's gonna shut down the world, right?" And I turned on the news. I was like, "Shit." Like, well, I gotta tell you something, babe. Like, you know what I mean? So, and my first job was a $300 cabinet. I had to rebuild it. Like, they had like a fridge, and I had to rebuild the cabinet on top. I had to remove it, rebuild it, and put it back, all solid oak. $300 labor. If I screwed up that job or didn't finish it by Friday, we would have missed a mortgage payment.
Wow.
That's how tight we were and how much of a gamble it was. And now, like last week, I had a $60,000 check bounce. I had a homeowner forget to leave me a check for 21 grand. I had another 10 grand that the homeowner went on vacation and didn't leave a check. I think it was like 106 grand, and I didn't miss payroll. Like it's a huge transition. Like kind of getting to that stage. And anyone listening, honestly, like plan for 5 years down the road. Like plan. Like it's not all bells and whistles all the way through. The faucet turns off eventually, right? So
And I think that's definitely huge, like the way you think about it too, and that's the way I see things, and have to revisit that in my own mind. Sometimes it's like not every goal is a 1 month goal, a 6 month goal, a 12 month goal. You got to think sometimes 5 years, 10 years down the line, and that's where your vision and your goal should really be. Because if you think about where you were 10 years ago and where you are now, it's like, damn, there's so much that has happened, or so much I've grown in 10 or 5 years. And so what can you do with the next 5 or 10 years? You
yeah,
know, instead of thinking about the little hurdles that happen on a daily basis, it's like think about how far you've come in that time span and what you can actually do with it, right?
especially like revisiting it. I know there's gonna be entrepreneurs that listen to this, obviously, and I know they're gonna like comment on it, but I'm like, revisit and reanalyze and restructure your goals. Like I do mine like bi-weekly. I literally have a board there that says 10 years, 3 years, 1 year, 6 months and everything. And probably every 2 weeks I look at it and I'm like, what can I change on that? And it's not like the big goals where it's like, say my 10 year is to be acquired in 3 businesses, right? That's
Right.
gonna be a big goal I keep, right? But those little ones, like you'd be surprised how much of those you check off the list, and you're ultimately chasing nothing at that point. Like if you don't stay consistent with those small goals, like getting to that big one, I find you're almost just that's when you get back to the employee mentality or the like the routine mentality, and you kind of lose like a fire on your own ass. Like I find I'm really good with looking back at my goals and saying, you know what? Shit, that's off the list. That's off the list. That's off the list. You know what? Let's make this a little more difficult and kind of like amp it up a little bit because I love challenging myself. I love, someone tells me you can't do something, watch out. That's it. Like I'll do it tomorrow. Like I'll do it cold. Like no problem. And I find a lot of entrepreneurs that I've talked to, they make a goal, set it in stone, and say, "This is my path." I'm like, you got to learn to walk off the beaten path. Like you really have to.
No, you definitely have to, especially as an entrepreneur, you have to have an adaptive goal or adaptive mindset, and whether it's because you're hitting the smaller goals faster than you think, or that, your path isn't going to be a straight line always. So you need to have an adaptive goal and revisit those, like you said, and relook at it and reanalyze it and be like, man, I'm not pushing myself enough. And as entrepreneurs, it's one of those things where we naturally are competitive people, even if it is within ourselves, right?
But those small goals, like I was just talking to someone 2 days ago, and they're talking like, "Oh, I'm almost here on this," and I'm like, "Okay, but I know that was a goal 2 months ago. You're hitting it, great, but how's that going to benefit you? Like, look at it. Like, it's nothing's wrong with getting close to a goal and saying, you know what, I'm almost better off going this way. You're getting there, but that's part of being an entrepreneur, and just better like improving yourself day to day. Like we were talking about self development is like I never thought I'd be in a mastermind. I never thought I'd be doing coaching. I never thought, I'd even go to someone for help. And here I am now as an entrepreneur working for myself going, why am I going to go crazy trying to resolve this problem? I go, you know what? Like maybe someone can help me out with this, but I in turn can help back the other way. And then these small goals all of a sudden start dissipating and you start aiming towards something bigger. Like I find once you get to a certain level, like you have no small goals. They just become routine. They just become like I don't know, structure, non-negotiables, however you want to call them, right? Like I'm sure you in the fitness industry, you have clients who are like, my goal is to hit the gym every day, and then 6 months down the road, they're like, I'm still, aiming to hit the gym every day. It's like, bro, you're doing that.
Yeah.
Like it's not a goal anymore. It's just it's part of you. Like that's who you are. Like make it bigger, change it up. Say I'm gonna hit the gym every day, but I'm gonna do 2 days this, 3 days that. Like it's I find people get so stuck up on like a hard written in stone goal in self development. They're almost working against themselves. It's like you got to constantly change your goals, adapt to them, move towards new things. What interests you and what's going to better yourself. Like look at your big goal and that small goal you made for 2 months, like it might not even be feasible to help you get to that 10-year goal.
Right. You got to keep moving that line, or even like I know for a lot of clients and stuff like that have like let's say the Apple Watch or something, and they're all psyched that they hit their daily move or active thing. And I'm like, dude, how many days have you hit that in a row? And I hit it every single day. I'm like, well, that's not a goal. Like you're just doing it every single day. It's only 12 o'clock. Like, come on, you got to set that bar a little higher and keep moving.
Right?
Like you're just now it's just an alarm clock for you essentially. Um,
That's what it is.
so now you pushing yourself and doing new limits. I know the last time we talked, you're taking on a new business venture. Let's go into that a little bit. What's that business venture?
That's completely like opposite of what I'm doing now. So right now I'm doing general contracting, and me and my wife have just acquired into a pet product actually. So we got to start dealing with crowdfunding, like I guess internet marketing, social media marketing, injection molds. Um, Honestly, it's a whole nother beast. Like I like there's days I look at it, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm talking about here. Like, but again, that was one of my goals is to acquire into another business. So I don't know, like I love the service industry, but I feel like again, it's one of those like I did when I quit my job. I'm too smart for this. Now I'm like getting into the nitty gritty, getting into these masterminds or inner circles or groups. I'm like, there's more out there, and I'm getting
Right.
hungry for newer goals. So we did get into this new business, and we're trying to figure out as we go, and just trial and error, man. Like the unfortunate part is like when you get to a bigger game, the errors are a lot more expensive, right?
No,
But
definitely.
ultimately, it's just a product for dogs, leashes, attachments. Hopefully, it takes off. We're at the early stages right now. We don't have manufacturing done yet. That's our next step. But everyone's going to hear about it. Trust me. I'm going to kind of pull every string I can to get it out there and, get some help to kind of get the word out there. You guys are going to hear a lot more about it. So, don't worry about that.
After now thinking about it, after this, I'm gonna send you a connection who's in the same industry. Um, he basically had his own dog food company. I think he still does. He's one of my clients, but he's like an expert in that space. I'll definitely talk to you more about that afterwards. Um,
That'd be
but
awesome.
that's awesome. Like from going high school dropout to construction worker to being like, look, I'm gonna do this on my own. Being an entrepreneur and being a general contractor and running your business, having employees. Now, like you just said, moving that bar for yourself. you didn't choose to go in another avenue or another area of construction or contracting. You went left field and went into, a pet company,
Yeah.
so you're having to learn a ton of new skills and a whole new industry. So you're essentially doing what you're saying, and pushing that bar. What made you go into that industry?
Truthfully, my aunt is the one that designed the product, and she's been going back and forth on it for, I'd say, about a year now. And like family get-togethers, you hear about it. Then all of a sudden, you see a picture of it. Then when it hit home, is she brought over the prototype one day. I think it was like Christmas dinner or something, and she was living between Alberta and Toronto, and she left it with us and said, "Hey, try it out. Let me know what you think of it." We tried it. When she had to take it back to get it like readjusted, I truthfully couldn't live without it. Like I know I'm the one selling the product, so I'm not trying to upsell anyone, but like it actually made sense. And I'm like, this is not a bad idea. So she got more into kind of the business, kind of aspect of it, and had questions, and said, "I don't know how to do this," or how would I do this? And I'm like, you know what? Are you willing to let us buy in? She was like, if anybody's gonna buy in, yeah, 100%. Like you and Kasha went from, like I said, Kasha's my wife, having a cabinet for $3 or $300, missing a mortgage payment, to we're doing 7+ figures in sales now through the construction, and that's a matter of what, 3.5 3 years now
Yeah,
since COVID
that's
started,
crazy.
3.5. So like we've scaled, we've done it, I've invested in myself. So she had that confidence, and that's how it kind of snowballed. And I said, okay, you know what, how much to buy in? And she said yes. We went to the lawyers, signed all the paperwork, and now we're 25% partners. So we're not 50-50 partners, but I'm hoping, we can kind of buy in with a little bit of sweat equity here.
No, I mean that's also important that you already know, but it's not always like everything you go into needs to be 50-50 straight out the gate. And I think a lot of people, especially that aren't entrepreneurs, that want to become entrepreneurs, that are, coming into a company or coming into a partnership, they sometimes need to realize that, like, it's okay to not start off at 50-50 if you're not the, money, or if you're not the inventor of it. Like, a piece of the pie, especially as it grows, you can always get a bigger piece, with agreements. Or if you guys continue to grow, like, a small piece of a bigger pie is always, nicer as well. And that's the one thing for us, like for the franchise, like that's what I realized too, is like my goal for franchising wasn't the fact that I needed to be the owner of every single location, right? I wanted to be able to spread this and help other people out like yourself. But it's one of those things where, the more you can help and the more you can contribute, like you're helping out your aunt, you get to benefit from it as well and learn and adapt. Um, with that, how has it been so far? I know it's early in the game, but how has it been working with your wife and your aunt? Does your wife work with you in the construction company?
Yeah, we brought her on as I guess she's a design consultant for all the projects. So like truthfully, we're at the point where like tile shows up to the job. I don't even know if it's the right tile. I just take a picture. Is that the right one? Yep. Like that's how little like I do with the design work, which works out great. We have hard lines that we draw between each other, which I think is a positive in our business. I love working with my wife. I was actually the one that forced her to do it. Like one year at Christmas, I'm like, you know what? Every day I came home and it was like, oh, why don't you pick this tile for this job, or why don't you do that, or why don't you do this? I just handed her, admission to like an interior design school, and I said, here's your Christmas present. Go to school, get your diploma, quit your job with the school board. And she was working with the school board. It wasn't a bad job. It was union benefits and everything. I'm like, quit your job, come work with me, and that's how she started. So me and her work hand in hand, no problem. Like we haven't had, you hear those horror stories about, husband and wife and stuff like that, but we haven't had that. Like we truthfully, I think our relationships got better since we started working together. And then just rolling my aunt in, I think my aunt knows what I enjoy bringing to the table. I'm very, how do I say it? Like not assertive, but like if I walk in a room, I can fill a room like that. Like I just have that personality, so I can take charge and mitigate and delegate as I see needed. So when I came in with my aunt, me and my wife already had our roles. And I said, listen, I can take care of this. And I think getting into a partnership, those discussions should be had right off the hop saying, hey, listen, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that, and we should do this. And just lay it out there. If someone says no, we got to iron it out now before we're 2 feet deep, right? So we did have those hard lines. There was no, so far, no huge hiccups, no problems. Little things like we have a sales email, we have an admin email, we have a marketing email. Like an email gets opened in the wrong folder. It's like, oh, I didn't see that one. Oh shit, I accidentally opened it. Sorry about that. That's my biggest problem, man. And I'm sure especially as a franchise owner, if that's your biggest problem, someone accidentally opened an email and left it unread, like I'll take that problem all day, like all
Right.
day long, right? So
So, but you guys already kind of drew the lines of each role and who's doing what and responsible for what in the beginning.
yeah, yeah. And honestly, we're really good at sitting down when something happens. Like even with the contracting business, if something does happen, we're good at sitting down saying, "Hey, it happened. Got to fix it. Got to make it right. What can we do to improve on this or make sure it doesn't happen again?" And you know what? Our processes and procedures, like pages and pages of Excel sheets and everything. But this happens, you do this. That happens, you do that. Like even like with our support staff, like they know, like an inquiry comes in for an estimate, you send this email, and they're all templated already.
Hmm.
You just add the person's name, send that out. When they respond, you set a schedule. When the schedule's set, you send me an invite. Like I think systems and procedures are huge in a business, especially when you're trying to scale. Don't implement them after you scale. Like do them as you scale or before you need them. On full transparency with my business, for 6 months, I hate to say I lied, but I lied to people and I was running two email addresses. I was running the admin one and I was running my personal one and writing the emails from admin as if we had a support staff. So we looked like we were a bigger business than we were. I know this sounds corny, but it helped drive sales. It helped drive customer service. Like I was going crazy there trying to like bounce between two emails, but like it works. But as I was doing that, I was creating a system for when we did hire someone on. So when they hired on, it was kind of like, this is what I've been doing the past 6 months.
Right. And it's one of those things where, I mean, it's not that it's like corny or anything. It does, especially you had the goal to scale and to have someone fill that role. So it wasn't like you were always trying to be like a one man show and kind of play that like smoke and screens where look, you're going to send the email to my accounting team and then they're going to forward it to this team and it's really you behind the scenes. Like you were actually just creating those systems and processes because you knew you needed people for those, right? So sometimes you gotta fake it until you make it in the sense of building
Yeah.
out that system and process because like you said, it is a lot harder to play catch up than it is to build as you go.
But even bringing someone in, it's kind of, how can you tell someone to do something that you can't do yourself?
Right.
That's the way I look at it. And as a general contractor, I think like, okay, I might not be able to frame a whole house by myself. Might not be able to rough in a whole house of electrical by myself, but I know the basics. Like I can't tell you to do something I can't do myself. If it came down to it and I had to, pretty sure I could do it, right? But I just feel like as an owner, operator, you do have an obligation to an extent to be able to do what you're telling your employees to do. If you get to the point where you can't, for instance, you don't know how to manage accounts, you need to bring on an account manager that can do that for you to show your employees how to do it.
Right.
So, like, I know, people might say, like, well, you're doing all the accounting in your company and you don't know how to do accounting. So, how can you tell someone how to do accounting? I'm like, okay, that's when I bring an accountant on to show the people how to do the accounting. Like, if you can't do it yourself, you have to have a superior in place to show employees how to do something you're telling them to do. You can't just
Exactly.
tell someone, go ahead and do this without no guidance or no like accountability above them.
Right.
If you're paying someone an entry level job, you can't expect them to have accountability. I
Definitely.
just find it's not fair. It's not building a good culture. It's not building, a good repertoire with like within your company. It's like they should be able to look up at someone and say, okay, I don't know how to do this. How do I do this?
Right. They need a point of contact or a resource that they can use because if they're asking you and you're supposed to be the go-to person and you're like I don't know, figure it out, then it doesn't really look good.
Right?
So I completely get that. What has been the biggest thing for you from your start till now, or even you moving forward with your personal development or with your mindset? Like, what do you do? What do you listen to, read?
Um, I'm big on, I don't like to call them self help books, but I like, you know, business driven kind of. Actually, I saw it on I dropped a post the other day asking if anyone liked any books or recommending, but fables, like kind of made up stories built around, so stuff like The Money Tree, Richest Man in Babylon, like those kind of driven books where it's a story, but it has a little bit of context behind it, and a little bit of volume behind it where you can learn something out of it. I don't, again, I hate textbook style books where I'll read them. I know I should read them, but I hate this is how much you make. This is your gross profit. This is your net. Like, do this calculation. You should be at 30%. If you're not at, like, I do them. I don't like them. I do like the fable style books. I'm at the point with podcasts where if I'm listening to music on my drive, I feel like I'm wasting my time. Like, that's
Yeah.
where I'm at right now with that. I
Do you do audiobooks?
I don't do audiobooks. I like holding a physical book. You can see like behind me there. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love collecting the books. I love seeing them. They're scattered all over my house. Like I don't mind paying a little bit extra money and having the physical book on me. But again, I know my kids might not never pick them up, but it's the point they can go through these books. And I'm the type of guy where I'll fold pages, I'll highlight. I go back and read books more than once. I do journal in the morning, so I do add quotes into my journal. I do have like a daily statement kind of read out loud. And I've heard a lot of people say read out loud. I started doing that 4 months ago. It makes a difference. Like I've been consistent, say about 3 weeks now, adding more to my morning routine. I missed it yesterday, parts of it. My day went like just bombs went off my day. I felt like I was all over the place. I really starting to see this whole gratitude manifestation kind of thing. Like if you set up the tone in your day with just 10 minutes. I was actually just on a call with an RBO member today and they're asking about journaling. And I'm like, I don't write fancy quotes. I'm like, I woke up 15 minutes late, but I had dinner half an hour later yesterday. My sleep wasn't great, but, I did have, you know, my shake an hour later. Like, I try to journal about my day daily, about what happened yesterday. Woke up great, felt great, got my workout in, you know, work went to shit, but I got through it. I made it happen and I got home, spent time with my family. I use that huge as, say, 3 months down the road, I'm having a low or a really horrible day. I go back to my journal and I find a day where I was having another low. I read that day and I read 5 more pages. And it reminds me that, shit gets better. It's not forever. It's you got it through it then. If you go back further, you probably got through it again before that. You got through it again. The problems might be on a different scale as you develop yourself, more, but I think that's a huge part of like self development is reflecting back, not always looking forward. Like you got to look back and say like I'm not having a good day, but I haven't had a good day before. So and I got through it and and just press a reset button. Like it's not horrible to say, the day almost beat me today. Like never admit it beat you, but kind of say like, I was just my neck was kind of at that drowning point, but I got through the day. Like you got to wake up and remember too, like a lot of people, and I thought about this when like my mom passed away. It's not everyone wakes up. Like I literally tell people, like I'll go to my local hardware store and they're like, "Hey Jay, how's your day going?" I'm like, "Hey, I woke up. Some people didn't." Like, you know what I mean? Like I could be having the worst day in the world, but I had a friend at 31 years old and sleep apnea. He literally went downstairs and went back to sleep before he went to work, woke up in the middle of the night, slept on the couch, slept awkward and died of sleep apnea. Like and he
Well,
didn't wake up in the morning. Like it's one of those. Like if you wake up in the morning, like you're not having a bad day. And then add in the personal development, the journaling, 15 minutes to yourself, meditation, your workout, like it changes you. It really does change you for the better.
and how is your working out?
It's going good. Yeah, now it's pretty consistent. Yeah.
That's good.
I had a little bit of highs and lows there, but I found I was having a lot of problems figuring out myself, like what I'm good at. my structure. I think I was overloading myself too much. Like, have you ever read like 6 books back to back to back or listened to 15 episodes of podcasts in a row? I feel I'm the type of person where I don't absorb it all.
Right.
I was trying to do too much at once where I'm like, okay, let's sit back, reset. So I started doing I'm going to start waking up early without an alarm. I started working on that. Okay, waking up. The time I was waking up in the morning was like 4 a.m. I'd go downstairs and do some paperwork for work or keep myself busy. The next day or next few weeks, I added in the journaling again. Then I added in my mission statements and slowly I added things as I go. And now it's like, I'm back all in now. Like, I'm as
So
deep
the
as you can
habits
get with
stack
personal
up.
development and I'm loving it. Like, I'm feeling better. I feel like if I miss something in my day, it's like my day, you know, has gone upside down.
That's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm completely with you. I mean, I just started doing like the daily journaling, kind of stuff after an event me and my business partner were just at. Um, but for me, I'll do books, and then I always am reading like a book, but I also do audiobooks as well because, like you said, like I can't do just podcast after podcast after like I start to get I'll zone out of it, So
Yeah.
for me, I have to switch up the tone, the style, and all that kind of stuff, um, which led me to think about how you were saying like your books that you like to read. Have you read any of the Jocko books?
I literally just purchased 2 of them.
Okay, so he has like three or four, but I have to say, if you catch yourself in a lull or anything like that, and you want to do an audiobook, either the dichotomy of leadership or um, what's the other one? Dichotomy of leadership, and then leader. There's leadership tactics, and there's another one too.
I'm trying to see it on my show. Yeah, I
But
think I purchased
like I
two or
gotta
three of
say,
them.
yeah, his audiobooks, it's crazy though because he does go back and forth between like war stories and like how that story and that event happened and how it translates into the business world. And it goes back and forth. But as he was talking about his like war stories and stuff, like I could literally picture it. So I hadn't read the actual book, physical book, but I definitely have to say the audiobook, that one was awesome.
See, I'm not against the audiobooks either. Like I did the audiobook of I read it and I did the audiobook of David Goggins
Hmm.
and the audiobook blew it away. Like going into like the stories in between chapters and stuff like that, it was like it was I totally get audiobooks, right? Like but I try to use my reading as like my quiet time. So to throw in headphones and kind of tune out the world. I like physically reading and I'm not a fast reader. That's one thing I've accepted. I'm not a fast reader. So I am trying to physically work on that too. So it's not just the reading, it's again trying to improve myself in somewhere I find I'm not as strong as I should be.
No, yeah, and that's one thing that for me too. Like I know I'm the same way, and that's I've gotten better at reading. I'm not the best reader, but I've gotten better at reading from physically reading more recently. But the reason I like audiobooks too is because there are so many books out there, and there are so many stories and so many cool stories that I feel that I can kind of break it up and read some of them, listen to some of them, because podcasts are great, but at the same time I need to break up that rhythm. Like I can't do audiobook back to back with another audiobook. I just can't. So I have to break it
Yeah.
up with podcasts and stuff. Another good audiobook version, just I'll usually listen to audiobook depending on who the reader is, especially if it's the person that wrote it. So like Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, like
Okay.
that's a pretty solid one because it's his life story. He goes back into his stories, but his acting voice and stuff, it makes the audiobook actually worth it. You
Yeah, I
know.
got to get into them. I got piles of books I got to read here still too, and just that's what I was worried about was getting lost in them, and because my days driving around to 7 different sites back and forth, I just want to be able to sit down and enjoy it, right? So I'm hoping next summer is when I have a little bit more time off and you kind of enjoy stuff like that when we're away camping and stuff. I'll maybe throw on some audiobooks. Just right now, I'm going to Mexico next week, so I got like 6 books in my knapsack or my carry on, and I'm like, I'm reading all week. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm playing some water volleyball with the kids, and that's pretty much it. Just reading. So hopefully it works out that way.
Where are you guys going?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. I don't. My wife booked it with her family and said we're going to Mexico, and I'm going to Mexico, man. Like that's pretty much
Uh,
it.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, one thing I like to ask people before we wrap it up is, what's one piece of advice or that you have for the listeners, either that was given to you or that you've learned along your journey, that you would like to, spread?
oh my God. You know what? I was actually listening to one of your podcasts. What was it? Week before that, and you asked one of your guests that, and I'm like, you know what? That's what it's gonna be. Now it's like I've got so much good advice over the years, but let's see here. I gonna be honest, like the best advice I ever got is like don't become familiar with like normal, like mediocrity. Like Napoleon Hill said it, and he said like our biggest weakness is becoming familiar with mediocrity and average. And I think people get comfortable with that. They get into their routine, they get into like a comfort zone, and I think that's really what's really hurting society is like people are just get comfortable. I have family, friends, whoever, like associates, colleagues, where I'm like, there's so much more out there for you. And if you're happy where you're at, great. But you can just tell when someone's not happy where they're at, or they just don't want to take the gamble or take the chance or something like that. Like don't become familiar with average. Just it's not impossible. It's
Yep.
not like so. If you ever want to take a chance or take a risk on yourself or go out and get something, just do it. Like all in. Don't be scared. Worst case, it doesn't work out, man. Like you can say, I'd rather say I tried than you know I never tried. Right?
Yeah, and have that regret.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, being a serial entrepreneur and everything like that. We'll definitely connect more, but I just want to say from the listeners and everything, your story is definitely inspiring, and I look forward to seeing what you do with the both your general contracting and your pet adventure over the next year.
yeah, man. No, I appreciate you having me on, man. Like, congrats on everything you've done. I know you're doing the franchising now and stuff like that. So those are big steps. They're not, baby steps. They're kind of like, take the, like I said earlier, take the plunge, right? Like,
Yep, you just got to
that's really
jump.
good. Congrats on everything, brother.
Thank you. We'll definitely talk soon.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right.